Welcome to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into Soccer Morning right here on WorldSoccerTalk.com. This is a gigantic program we have lined up. You are, pat yourself on the back. We're going to cover some things in Europe, some things in the United States. It is a U.S. men's national team game day. That means we have a lot to talk about on the U.S. national team front. Brian Sciaretta from American Soccer Now is going to join us in just a little bit to preview USA Peru tonight at RFK Stadium, to talk a little bit about DeAndre Yedlin and his loan move to Sunderland, to talk about the goalkeeper situation in U.S. camp, several other moving pieces. Jurgen Klinsmann's out in the press making comments. These things are all on the table with Brian Sciaretta. Following Brian Sciaretta, we're going to have an Iceland party. We are going to party like we live in Reykjavik. We're going to go off over Iceland's 1-0 win over the Netherlands yesterday in European Championship qualifying. Our friend Alexander Einarsson, who you might remember from our discussions around Aaron Johansson and his decision to play for the United States over Iceland. He's been gone from the program for far too long. Iceland soccer is on the rise. Let's have a party with Alexander. I don't know what what's the beverage of choice in Iceland. Trevor, you're a worldly person. I imagine they have some good beer in Iceland, right? I imagine that the microbrew situation in Iceland is probably pretty good. That's just a feeling I get. So that should be a very fun discussion to celebrate that big win with Alexander coming up. Let's go into the news. We'll start with those European qualifiers. Iceland beating the Netherlands, 10-man Netherlands, 1-0 at PSV yesterday. Gylfi Sigurdsson scores the winning penalty. Iceland now tops Group A on 18 points, while the Dutch sit in third on 12. Now, it's not the end of the world for the Dutch. Even if they finish third, they would go into a playoff, but it's not looking very good for Danny Blind and company. Wales moves closer to qualification for Euro 2016 with a win at Cyprus, 1-0 on a thumping header by a certain Gareth Bale. Belgium powers past Bosnia-Herzegovina 3-1. Italy squeaks past Malta 1-0 in Florence. The Italians now sit atop Group H. Qualifying today, Germany facing Poland at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. That's on Fox Sports 1. Georgia and Scotland, 12 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Deportes, ESPN 3, and Watch ESPN. Greece and Finland, 2:45 p.m. Eastern on ESPN 3 and Watch ESPN. And Denmark and Albania, also on ESPN Deportes, ESPN 3, and ESPN. That's also at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. Those are just your highlights for today's action. As I mentioned, Jurgen Klinsmann in the press making comments ahead of this friendly with Peru after the United States bombed out of the 2015 Gold Cup in the semifinal stage. Jurgen telling Stephen Goff of the Washington Post, it's a good thing you have so many comments and opinions because it shows that a lot more people care. They care about the game. They care about the national team. They care about saying their opinion. Do they understand what really happened in the Gold Cup? Some of them absolutely do, and a lot of people don't. I take it. It's not a big deal, but it also explains we have a long way to go to educate people out on the game of soccer still in this country. So Jurgen, poking the bear a bit, laid blame for some of the performance of the United States in the Gold Cup on the referees, which seems like a bit of a cop-out. That game tonight at RFK Stadium kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Coverage begins on Fox Sports 1 at 7 o'clock. There's a very good chance, in fact, it's about 99% now, that I myself will be attending that match in a fan capacity. I will let people know who are going to be at RFK where I'll be if you guys want to hang out. All right. Mexico also in the news. Mexican interim head coach Tuco Ferretti says the decision to leave off Jonathan and Giovanni Dos Santos was not punishment for their support of Miguel Herrera. Remember, Memo Ochoa also not on this team. Lots of speculation in the Mexican press that this was punitive action because of those tweets and social media support shown for Herrera in light of the controversy he embroiled himself in by punching somebody at an airport. Sports Illustrated's Leeview Bird reports that several American youth soccer clubs have filed complaints with FIFA's dispute resolution chamber over solidarity payments. This is an ongoing story that affects the youth game and development in this country. Crossfire Premier, Dallas Texans Soccer Club, and Soccer's Football Club of Chicago have filed complaints totaling a combined $480,000. That's not a small amount of money, certainly not at that level. The resolution, I'm not sure when that's coming down, but we'll look to get an update from Leeview and certainly dive back into this story as it continues to unfold. If you thought that FIFA putting together a reform committee under its own auspices, headed by Chairman Francois Carrard, would come to some sort of conclusion as to steps to take to clean up that organization, you were probably wrong. A 2-day conference between with that body has yielded no results. Chairman Francois Carrard said the committee is not yet at the proposal stage. And he also decided to use the opportunity when talking about their lack of movement to walk back his comments about the United States. If you remember, Carrard is the man who said that soccer in the United States is an ethnic sport for schoolgirls. He questioned the actions of the U.S. Department of Justice. He said on Thursday, "I should speak less," acknowledging that ethnic was a word I used that did not buy me a great publicity. He said football in the U.S. is extremely important and has known fantastic development. He was obviously taking that opportunity to blow some smoke. Said he respects the American judicial process. All right, let's step aside. We'll get ourselves ready. We'll cue up Brian Sciaretta. We'll get ourselves ready. We'll talk a little U.S. men's national team ahead of a friendly against Peru tonight at RFK Stadium at Soccer Morning. WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Talking too loud, but I can't hear you calling.
This Friday, the U.S. men's national team returns to action when it takes on Peru at RFK Stadium in an exhibition game. For a different experience, I'd like to invite you to mute the TV and listen to Matt Lichtensteiger on Rabble.tv as he shares his thoughts and analysis live during the international friendly. With Rabble, the concept is simple. All you have to do is tune into the broadcast on TV, press the mute button, and then head on over to Rabble.tv to listen to the broadcast on your desktop, through your iOS app, and now through your mobile browser. You can join in, too, by posting your questions or observations in the comments section. And if you have an iPhone, install the Rabble TV app and add a comment to the broadcast message board, then listen live via the app. Or why don't you create your own broadcast called one of your team's games? It's easy. Sign up for free today and try it out. Join Matt this Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern for USA against Peru on Rabble.tv, where it's your team and your call.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
We're back on a Friday edition of Soccer Morning. Man, I'm fired up today. Woo! It is the U.S. men's national team. I just gave you a woo. That was completely, I did not plan that at all. It was a completely natural woo. I don't think I'm going to get Brian Sciaretta from American Soccer Now to woo on the air. Brian, how are you?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get me to woo either, but those days are over.
Oh, come on. You're never too old to woo, Brian. Brian, we've got a national team game tonight. We'll certainly get to what faces Jurgen Klinsmann and his team against Peru at RFK Stadium and what this means, obviously feeding into a game against Brazil next week and into October with Mexico in the Confederations Cup. But let's nothing. Overall, this performance and certainly the progress that this U23 group has made under Andy Herzog, is it enough to give us some confidence heading into that CONCACAF qualifying tournament, which kicks off in less than a month?
I think it's going to be a very close call as to whether or not this team makes it. I guess the good thing about the team is unlike 2012, where they disappointed, this team doesn't really have the expectations that 2012 team did in qualifying. I mean, I think everyone knows this isn't particularly the strongest team. No one really knows that much about this team, in terms of who's the starting 11 and what is the best possible team that Andy Herzog sees out there. I mean, there's some very good team players being left off the roster in favor of some team players who are just without clubs or who are struggling to find clubs or get minutes at clubs. Sean Davis and Tim Parker haven't gotten a sniff of this team, whereas guys like Will Packwood, who hasn't been able to latch onto a team, and Benji Hoya, who hasn't played for a second-tier team in Mexico yet this season. So it's very much a mysterious group. No one really knows there's always been a problem releasing players throughout the whole time. So, yeah, they lost to England. It was a very good English team. But, who knows? There were some good things to take away from it. They won't probably see a team that good against qualifying. So, it's a mysterious team. I'm looking forward to seeing if the team maybe has some changes last minute, so heading into qualifying that we don't know about. Your guess is as good as mine.
Now, I think that I think a lot of people would point to some of the weaknesses being up top. I mean, certainly you've got, and again, it's about playing as a team, not necessarily individuals, but you've got Cameron Carter-Vickers and Matt Miazga in the middle. That should be pretty stout.
That's everyone likes what they did at the World Cup, no doubt. But Shane O'Neill was actually one of the better performers yesterday against England. He came up with some nice interceptions, nice blocks. He was the team captain. That's always something you want to look into. I mean, if the guy's wearing the captain's armband, he's probably in the guy's plans. Yeah, there are some pretty good central defenders. Fullbacks is really, really kind of off right now. And, there's weaknesses all around. I mean, there's central midfield, I would think, is the one area of the team and central defense and central midfield, I think, are the ones that you should probably feel comfortable with. It's the fullbacks, strikers, and wingers and outside midfielders that I think are the real areas of concern. But yeah, I mean, Cameron Carter-Vickers didn't play yesterday. I think he's going to be playing against Qatar on Monday, I believe, because Matt Miazga has to return back with the Red Bulls. So, but yeah, central midfield has guys like Will Trapp, Louis Gill, Emerson Hyman, Matt Polster. There are some good names there.
Mm-hmm. I think Cameron Carter-Vickers made an appearance. There were a rash of substitutions in about the 62nd, 63rd minute. So I think he maybe saw some time, but that was another reason to sort of be unclear of what you get out of a game like that. I mean, again, England wins the game. The Americans give up one goal. They maybe deserve to give up a one or two more, depending on how you view the balance of play. But again, it's maybe up top because it's Kiesewetter, it's Hernandez,
Jordan Morris is going to start once he's healthy. I mean, he's going to be around for qualifying. I think he's just there to stay at Stanford to rejuvenate his leg, and I mean because he had the surgery during the off season. I mean, Jordan Morris is going to be a big part of the team's offense up top, and then the other forward. At this point, it could very well be Rubio Rubin if they're able to get him released from Utrecht. I think that the discussion behind the scenes there is going to be ongoing. But I mean, Rubin and Rubio Rubin, Jordan Morris forward tandem, I think, is one that Andy Herzog and the team would probably feel pretty good about going into.
But again, we get into that issue of when they're available. Can he get them all together? Can they get those reps together as a team to get them comfortable enough playing as a team to go into Olympic qualifying and handle that business? And you pointed out the release issue. There's negotiations with Utrecht over Rubin. There's the tournament actually starts on the 1st for the Americans. I think that game's at Sporting Park. But the FIFA window doesn't open up until the 5th. So how do you even handle something like this? I mean, first, I guess the question for me is on the MLS side, are all of these MLS teams just going to be happy to let their guys go on, in time for the start of the tournament because it all feeds into the US? What's good for US soccer is good for MLS?
Yeah, I mean, there's never been an MLS player not released for important, meaningful games in qualifying, youth national team qualifying, ever. I mean, I as long as I can remember, there's never been whether it be U17, U20, or Olympic qualifying, or the respective World Cups or Olympics final games. Like MLS players have always been released. I mean, and I don't see that ever changing. It's just kind of like it's almost become like a code of conduct right now. They're not happy about it. Yeah. I mean, New York doesn't want to let Miazga go for these games. No,
of course not.
This has just been the norm. And here's another thing too. And this is I think people are just starting to realize that clubs are never required to release players for youth national team games, regardless of whether or not it's in a window. So even if it's in a window, like if it's a youth national team game, they have to release for full national team games because those are registered with FIFA as official games, even if they're friendlies that are during the windows. But youth national team games, no, there's never a required release. It's usually just customary. So the fact that they're playing these games in the windows is largely meaningless, although they try to work with some team, maybe gives an excuse to let them play.
Right. If those clubs aren't playing during the window, they have less of a reason to say no. But as you said, this is an ongoing problem, and I wonder if we're going to reach. I mean, it's maybe a discussion for a different day, but I wonder when we're going to reach that tipping point where some MLS team says no, we're not letting our guy go. We're in the middle of a playoff chase. We're 3 points off of making it in. There's no way we're letting go Matt Miazga or Mark Pelosi for San Jose or somebody like that. I mean, these guys are playing, and it's good that they're playing significant roles for their club teams. That's kind of the point here. All right, let's move on from the U23s. Again, a lot of moving pieces. I think right now Andy Herzog's job, despite what's going on with the U.S. national team and being a month and a couple of days away from playing Mexico for the Confederations Cup, Andy Herzog's job is the most difficult one in U.S. soccer at the moment.
Yeah, it is. And they're interlinked, too. I mean, qualifying for the Confederations Cup and qualifying for the Olympics are stated goals for U.S. soccer together. They're joined at the hip. And it all fits under Klinsmann, not as like the head coach, but as the technical director. So, I mean, October is a huge bellwether month, I think, for Klinsmann under the technical director head.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk before we get to USA Peru, which is a friendly. We've got some movement in terms of American players and their club situations. I guess the only one I can think of off the top of my head right now is DeAndre Yedlin getting a loan move to Sunderland from Tottenham Hotspur. It was going to be difficult for him to get playing time at Spurs. A loan of any kind sort of makes sense, but we always have to consider the individual circumstances. Brian, from your perspective, Sunderland a good place for DeAndre Yedlin to play his soccer this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it offers an opportunity. I mean, I like Dick Advocat. I mean, I think he's inclined to go with young players. I think it's still going to be tough when you go to a team that's in a relegation battle as opposed to a mid-table club, because there's a philosophy of it. When you're in a dogfight, sometimes you don't want to go with a guy who's played one club game so far in this calendar year. I mean, you usually want to go with, it's not a time to groom players. And Sunderland has they have no incentive to develop DeAndre Yedlin. He's not their player. So it's just a matter of what DeAndre can do right now, not what he can do in the future. And, I think it's going to be, it's going to be really important I think there's going to be openings. I think he will get some time, but it's a question of how he does when he's on the field. There's going to be a lot of pressure when he gets his first couple of opportunities, because if he doesn't take advantage of his minutes in the first couple of opportunities, it's going to be very hard for him to see the field again. So these first couple of games, whenever he gets on the field, is going to be very, very important. Probably among the most important club minutes he's ever played.
And word out of Sunderland is that he's viewed as an option both at fullback and on the wing.
That's what I'm told. Yeah, I'm told that most of the teams that were interested in taking him on were looking at him strictly as a winger, but Sunderland is looking at him at potentially both options. So that's good. Obviously, the more options, the more likelihood is you're going to play, the more opportunities. So that's something that he does have going in his way for sure.
All right, let's. But I just realized there's another youth team we should address quickly, and that's the U20s. They've started the cycle for the 2017 U20 World Cup. We've got a team that Tab Ramos has called in. They're going to be playing in a tournament in Serbia. I believe they lost yesterday in that tournament. So how are things going? And give me a sense of this group.
I mean, I think it's going to be a very good group when all's said and done. I think right now, in the very early part of the cycle, it's about just getting as many people playing, as many people minutes as possible to try to look at the players on the team and see what kind of talent you have. I think it's not going to be till next year when he starts to have a really good idea, and particularly after the U17 World Cup is going to be an important time for Tab, because that's at least when another big core of that team is going to be able to join with him, whether it be Christian Pulisic or Luca De La Torre, a few other good players that are with the 17s, and when they move up after their World Cup I believe it ends in November. Then the 20s are going to be full steam ahead. But I think it's going to be a good group of players. But right now, the results are kind of largely meaningless about just getting as many people minutes as possible.
And there's not a lot of names from this group that I know. I imagine a lot of people are probably behind the 8 ball on that as well. But we'll find out about them. The ones that stick out: Eric Palmer Brown's in this team at this tournament. Kyle Scott from Chelsea, who we've heard a little bit about. Christian Lucatero, who just signed a homegrown contract with the Houston Dynamo. Christian Lucatero dabbled in playing for Mexico, so that's. Am I seeing? There's an Analfo here. Is that Kurt's son?
It's Kurt's son. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And another thing too is that you have to remember Gideon Zilalem and Eric Palmer Brown. Not Eric Palmer Brown. Excuse me. Kramer Carter Vickers are also eligible with the 23s to play with the U20s as well. Whether or not they were willing to do another cycle, or whether they want to move on to bigger and better things within U.S. soccer remains to be seen. But if they move down too, then there's another piece of the starting lineup that is just to make this team outstanding.
All right, let's talk about quickly then Gideon Zilalem, who you brought up. He makes that loan move to Rangers. They're obviously in the Scottish Championship, the second division up there. Some questions about the level of play and whether that would push him. My argument would be that, hey, being in that pressure cooker of playing for a gigantic supported club like Rangers is probably good for his development, and he started well.
Yeah, he started very well. They like him a lot, and he's passing very well. He's able to implement put his footprint on the games that he's playing and do what he wants to do out there. Yeah, the level of play is not good, but you're absolutely right. The pressure of these games is not your typical Scottish second tier. I mean, this is about reviving one of Great Britain's oldest and most storied clubs. I mean, they still get close to 40,000 people a game. This is not, and they want to win. They demand to have their place back up there among the elite teams in the country, or maybe the best team in the country. And what happened a couple of years ago is humiliating. And Gideon's now a part of reviving like a very old and prestigious club. And I think that's going to, he has the technical ability. Whether or not this is going to help him on the maturity level, which we understand and we've seen has been a weak point with some of America's top, most hyped prospects, is that maturity issue and being able to play down a level and do whatever it takes to get playing time. And maybe realizing you don't deserve to start for Arsenal or Bayern Munich, not to mention any names, or other big clubs, but maybe go down and to a level that you think is below you just to learn how to handle that pressure. And he's doing it. I really like the move a lot.
Yeah, I think it may end up working out for Zilalem in terms of his progress. As you said, technically it's not an issue for him. It's those other things. It's the mental game, which we know.
And this really addresses what some youth players have lacked. I mean, the fact he's willing to do this tells me he might not end up like a couple of the other people I don't want to mention.
Because we know that the difference between a top-level player is not necessarily the physical gifts. It's about that mental sharpness and staying on top of your game and growing as much as you can. All right, so we talked about Zilalem. You didn't want to mention the game, but I feel as though we're required to give some sort of update on the plight of Julian Green in Germany, a player who, look, the loan was not good last year, as you mentioned with Yedlin. It's a matter of these clubs sometimes taking on players who they're not interested in whether or not they're going to develop that player. They want somebody who can help them win now. He clearly wasn't that guy for Hamburg, and now we see him deciding to stick with Bayern Munich and play with the U23 team again. That is not progress.
No, it's not. I mean, he did that a couple of years ago. I mean, he's back at the same level. And he's not scoring as much as he did 2 years ago for Bayern Munich's reserves. I mean, he's not even the youngest kid on this team anymore, and younger players at Bayern are passing him. Look, the problem with him is that the Hamburg loan was not necessarily what he did the first team. It was his reluctance to play with Hamburg's reserve team. And when and that, I think, really rubbed people the wrong way. He didn't have the stature to do that. I mean, he kind of tried to force his way along with an old and storied Bundesliga team that was, they were struggling, but he's in a bad situation. And look, the fact he's not with the U23s and he's not with the full national team, he's eligible for both. I think that he's really at a crossroads right now, and the fact that he is still playing fourth tier German soccer full time. I don't even think he's training with the first team anymore. Is telling, and he's missing key years of his development right now. I mean, there's no substitute for playing first team minutes somewhere, not reserve team, not practice. There's no substitute for it. And I think, the fact that he's still didn't want to go out on loan, and he's still there at Bayern Munich U23 team is very telling. And the fact that U.S. Soccer hasn't selected a Bermuda of these teams is, I think, is indicative. I think that there's some disappointment there if you look at just how things have played out, and it's up to Julian. The ball is in his court. Is he going to go is he going to have the guts to do something like Gedi and Zalalem did, or is he going to do maybe something that like Freddie Adu did? I mean, it's up to him right now. I mean, you can't. He's only so long he can put in a good situations. And Jurgen Klinsmann and other guys within U.S. Soccer are, they can't do it for him.
Yeah. That leads me to a question briefly here, and we'll move on from Julian Green. But do you put any of the blame for what's going? Look, it's ultimately down to him. He's got to make good choices. He's got to put in the effort. But do you put any of the blame on for Julian Green and his stalling on Jurgen Klinsmann and what he did with him last year?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I mean, I think in hindsight, was it the best thing to rush him onto the senior team as quickly as they did? I don't think so, personally. I mean, I think when we lament how much us in the media hype some young players, especially like someone like me who covers the U.S. national teams, I'm always kind of worried about it. But at the same point, if you put somebody on the World Cup team and you leave the all-time leading scorer off the team, and you talk about like how he's on Bayern Munich and he's such a great talent, he deserves to be on the World Cup team. That's going to create the hype, not the media. And I don't think the hype has really helped Julian Green out a lot. I think like when you look at how he acted on his loan to Hamburg and didn't play with the reserves that one time and just refused to. I mean, that sounds like a kid who maybe thinks he's better than he is. We'll see. I mean, it's tough to say. Well, I don't. Playing in the World Cup could obviously, inflate one's ego, not just Julian Green, but anyone's, especially as a teenager.
Sure. And maybe this is all our fault for not being educated soccer fans in this country, Brian. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what Jurgen Klinsmann said to Stephen Goff, but I obviously this is a game tonight at RFK Stadium that will begin a process. I mean, you hope, if you're a U.S. national team fan, begin a process of getting back to something approaching their usual standard again, especially as Mexico looms large in Pasadena on the 10th of October. So what does Klinsmann want to get out of this? I mean, what do we want him to get out of this game? He's talking about using his full complement of substitutions, which I actually think is counterproductive in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to look at what works right now, because what happened at the Gold Cup, regardless of how well he thought the team played against Jamaica, and there was good things, the problems at the Gold Cup were not against Jamaica. It was the totality of the tournament. I mean, I didn't think they played. If you want to say something, if you want to talk about the team's performance at the Gold Cup, the game against Jamaica was probably their best performance, but that was the problem. I mean, the group stage and even the pre-tournament friendly against Guatemala just the team didn't look good. I mean, they were getting outshot dramatically, and teams like Haiti were taking it to them for long stretches of the game. And these are teams that historically the U.S. has pounded. So you have to kind of ask why that wasn't the case. So, I mean, yeah. So for this game, I think it's really, you have a lot of it. You have some guys coming back into the team that have been out for a while. It's quickly integrating them. I mean, Jeff Cameron was sorely missed at the Gold Cup. Where are you going to put him? And then there's also the fullback situation is a mess. It's going to be down to players playing there out of position, and there's not much of wingers or wide players either. So it's it's really a bunch of moving parts right now to try to figure out what works, and he has to kind of go through the whole substitution list, because right now I think there's so many question marks. I mean, is Morales, who was dismissed from the Gold Cup team after the group stages, saying, because Clemson said things aren't quite right or quite clicking with him. He said something along those lines with him yet. He needs more time. Well, he doesn't have much time, but no. Alfredo Morales is playing pretty well for the Bundesliga. Like, are these two games going to be the time he needs to get him to bring that Bundesliga quality over to the national team, especially without Michael Bradley there for the first game? Danny Williams, too. I mean, these are guys that have all been on the precipice of becoming regular members of the team, but haven't quite made that jump. So these are things that you have to see whether or not there's a whole list of players, whether it be Aaron Johansson, who's been on the bench behind Josie. Can he kind of now become that scoring threat behind Clint Dempsey? Because there's no real plan B. It was either Clint Dempsey scores or has a hand in creating a goal, or they don't score. Who's going to really step up and become that offensive threat? Yeah. Tremaine Jones. He's rejoining the team. So there's all kinds of people either rejoining the team or trying to increase the role on the team right now who haven't quite been there yet. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts right now, it's big on the individual level.
The number of recalls here is, I think, indicative of something in terms of Clemson's thought process. No matter what he says, there's also, he sort of can't be too experimental at this point, not with limited time between now and Mexico. But he is working in some new elements. One of those new elements is Andrew Wooten, who has started out the season very strong in the second division in Germany, a guy that you've profiled. 25 years old is kind of late to be making your entry into the national team, potentially as a striker option. What does Wooten bring to the table that maybe we haven't seen in this group? Because if he's not significantly better or of a different kind of player than what you've already got, why bring him in?
Well, he is. I mean, he's an actual target forward. I mean, he can play the center forward. I mean, if you ever seen him play, he's a strong guy and he has some speed. I mean, if you look at some of the forwards that the U.S. team has tried, whether it be Aaron Johansson, who's almost can drift back and play midfield roles, create, and then he's very slick in the box. He makes great moves, and then Chris Wondolowski too. These kind of forwards. But Andrew's a big, strong guy. I mean, he has some speed. He's played out wing before. But here you have a guy who has a little bit more power in the box too, and I think that's particularly useful if you're playing against certain types of opponents. And I think it's is he going to be a savior? Is he going to be a revelation? No, I think he's an above. I mean, he's been around long enough to prove that he's an above average 2 Bundesliga forward, and that's pretty much it. But that's still pretty good. I think. So I think he can get him through a rough patch too, particularly if other forwards aren't stepping up right now at the moment.
Well, and one of the forwards that didn't step up at the Gold Cup and was sent packing was Josie Altidore. He's back in the team. He's had a good run for TFC. Does that confidence carry over?
Yeah, I mean, it only helps. Josie's a player who lives and dies by his confidence. I mean, he disappears for months at a time, and then for the next few months right afterwards, he's like an elite world-class striker. Like it's a paradox with him, and you can only hope that those goals are a clicking turning point. And I think Peru and Brazil will show us whether or not Josie's returning to that level when he can't stop scoring. So it's there's no striker more indicative of feast or famine than Josie. I mean, he exemplifies that. So the fact that he's scoring, even if they're he scored against Orlando when Orlando was down to 9 players. It doesn't matter. He's used to getting the ball into the net, and I think that's only going to help, obviously. And I think I would like to see those two paired together. I mean, Josie and Aaron Johansson. That'd be an interesting pairing. Obviously, they were former teammates in Holland, but I think that both of them can kind of complement each other because they have pretty different kind of games.
Yeah, certainly. Now these are two very different friendlies. I mean, both South American sides, but we know from a quality standpoint, Brazil brings a little bit more than Peru does, and yet I don't know what to expect in terms of how, I guess what we want to see is the Americans on the front foot, but is that possible without Michael Bradley in the team?
Sure, it's possible. It's possible without Clint Dempsey. And there's still a lot of talent there in the midfield. I mean, Danny Williams, Alfredo Morales, and these are all guys that are capable of playing against good, high-level competition. The question is whether or not they're going to be put into a system and a format that is used to that. And we'll see. I mean, this is where it comes down to Jurgen Klinsmann to put players in a position to succeed, and to, when a player is playing well at his club, to bring, to be able to transfer that success from the club level to the national team. I mean, it's disappointing, I think, for many fans when they see players do well at the club level, and then when they come to the national team, they look like just another cog in the machine. Like they don't stand out. They don't really add as much as people thought. I mean, I think it comes down to the coach, and we've seen this before Jurgen Klinsmann too. I mean, a bunch of many other coaches, even at the youth teams. You just need to be able to. It's up to the coach really to get that success to translate over and put everyone in their best position to make the best impact on the field, and not have people, Jurgen talks about comfort zones and having people stay out of their comfort zones, I think another approach, I think, is to get players into their comfort zone, put them into their best position to succeed. So we'll see. But again, there's so many people injured in this game, like at fullback, for example. I think you're going to see players playing out of position. Jeff Cameron might play on the right. Timmery might play on the left back role. I mean, I don't know how these things are all going to come together, but I mean, who knows? Sometimes players can become revelations in these games when you least expect it.
And at center back, any hints over what he's going to do? He went with Brooks and Alvarado to a fault in the Gold Cup, and now he's got Gonzalez and he's recalled Beasler.
You know what? This is going to be the starting lineup in the central defense is going to be the most telling. Omar Gonzalez and Matt Beasler have had success, both of them against Mexico. Ventura Alvarado and John Brooks, struggled at the Gold Cup. So whether or not does he believe in his assessment in the Brooks Alvarado pairing to be that his first choice central defense, or is he going to go against a team that's proven to win, particularly against Mexico? It's going to be very, very telling, and who knows? I mean, he looks like he brought in this lineup for experience, and I think he values experience. So, based on his call-ups and the reluctance to go with any kind of new players that are doing well, particularly in MLS or abroad, I think my bet is that you're going to see Omar and Matt Beasler, but it's going to be very telling. By no means am I certain about that.
Brian Sciaretta, American Soccer Now. Follow him on Twitter at Brian Sciaretta. He'll be in D.C. covering USA Peru this evening. Brian, thank you very much for the time, and enjoy the match. Maybe I'll run into you somehow.
I look forward to it, Jason. Thank you very much.
There goes Brian Sciaretta. Good stuff from him. When we come back, we're going to talk to Alexander Einarsson. He's Icelandic. I'm sure he's a very happy man today. Iceland beating the Netherlands in European qualifying. We'll talk about that. Soccer Morning, WorldSoccerTalk.com.
I got 5 broke strings on a broke guitar.
This Friday, the U.S. men's national team returns to action when it takes on Peru at RFK Stadium in an exhibition game. For a different experience, I'd like to invite you to mute the TV and listen to Matt Lichtensteiger on Rabble.tv as he shares his thoughts and analysis live during the international friendly. With Rabble, the concept is simple. All you have to do is tune into the broadcast on TV, press the mute button, and then head on over to Rabble.tv to listen to the broadcast on your desktop, through your iOS app, and now through your mobile browser. You can join in too by posting your questions or observations in the comments section. And if you have an iPhone, install the Rabble TV app and add a comment to the broadcast message board, then listen live via the app. Or why don't you create your own broadcast called one of your team's games? It's easy. Sign up for free today and try it out. Join Matt this Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern for USA against Peru on Rabble.tv, where it's your team and your call.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
We're back on Soccer Morning. It is a Friday edition of the program. We're coming out of a discussion about the U.S. men's national, straight into a discussion about European qualifying for the big winners yesterday. Iceland 1-0 over the Netherlands in the Netherlands. And to talk about that from an Icelandic perspective, our friend Alexander Einarsson. It's the closest I'm going to get to the pronunciation. Alexander, how are you?
I'm very good, very good. You're getting better with each time.
So, yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah, you're being too nice. Alexander, that was obviously a massive victory for Iceland yesterday. Gylfi Sigurdsson with the winning penalty. The Dutch went down to 10 men. There are a lot of ways to look at that match and sort of say, well, was it Iceland being good or was it the Dutch being bad? But I don't think it matters from your perspective.
No, it doesn't at all. I mean, in the end, of course, we're not blind. We realize that we were lucky that the Dutch lose Arjen Robben after less than half an hour and they get this red card, and obviously we get a penalty. So you could say that everything absolutely went with us. But in the end, I don't think you beat the Netherlands at home on pure luck. So I would say it was deserved. I mean, tactically we were brilliant. We kept them from creating good chances, and in the end it was this magnificent team performance and effort. But of course, with this little bit of luck to make this dream a reality.
Now there are 3 matches left in qualifying in the group stage in Iceland. In this particular, for this case, Iceland finishes first. They're in the tournament. That's what they want. 18 points after 7 matches, 2 points ahead of the Czechs, and 8 points ahead of the Dutch. If I got that right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what accounts for? I mean, we saw them come close to the World Cup last year. This is obviously a step forward, building on that momentum. It wasn't lightning in a bottle for 2014. It carries through. How has your country managed that?
It was tough for us not to get to the World Cup. I mean, we were very disappointed, and I was in Croatia, of course, and it didn't go through. But what I appreciate is that the guys didn't see this as their only chance, to ever go to a big tournament gone wrong. They just saw this as a good place to continue from and just try to build on that and get to the Euros. And the guys are just more experienced and better players, and it's just everything is working out very well. And it's of course great to be a part of this country when things are going so well, so to speak.
And you and I, Alexander, have talked about Iceland and their growth as a footballing country over the last couple of years. For a lot of people, it kind of boggles the mind. How does this tiny nation put together such a good team and produce so many high quality professional players? And a lot of people want to point to efforts, a lot of indoor soccer, a lot of small-sided stuff like that, and clearly an investment in coaching. I mean, is it as simple as that?
Well, I think in the end, it's all about. I mean, where I'm standing right now, I'm at a stadium where I trained as a kid, and I trained on what do you call it, dust. The field was just made of tiny little rocks, and now we have these artificial fields and indoor palaces. So a lot has changed over the years, and of course that plays a part. And in fact, also the fact that we've been investing a lot in coaching. But I think it's also just more about that football is just growing so fast here, and more people are training every day, and the kids are outside all the time, and we seem to have some kind of we always liked football, but there just seems to be kind of a football mania going on these days, and perhaps stuff like the internet helps with that. You can see everything that's going around, and you can read more and watch videos from wherever you want. And I just think it's creating more interest and more passion, and the young guys who are playing football outside, they just want to be, superstars, if you could put it that way.
I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the team that will play the Dutch and will play Kazakhstan on the 6th. I mean, the average age of the midfield is something like 26 years old. The average age of your forwards is fairly low, except for Johnson, and then you have maybe some experience in the back. But this is again, sort of identifying that this is the prime for everybody. So this is the opportunity. They've taken it on. No, I don't imagine that there's a lot of expectation that the Kazakhs will present a challenge, but if you win that match, where do things stand? That's it, right?
Yeah, exactly. We only need 1 point from our last 3 games to qualify, and I'm sure we'll clinch our qualification on Sunday against Kazakhstan. With all due respect to them, they are not a team that should pose a considerable threat if we play our game. But obviously, the guys will be very pumped and excited. But that's what I think is what they learned from Croatia when they just couldn't rise to the occasion in the second game. I think that's what they learned, and it won't happen again. They'll come with their hats on the right place, and I think we're going to finish it on Sunday, hopefully.
One of the other fascinating things is certainly from an American perspective, where we tie so much of what our national team might be to the domestic league that we have here. That's obviously growing and trying to make a difference in terms of development. Iceland doesn't have what anybody would call a big domestic league, Alexander. Obviously, you know that this roster had 2 domestically based players on it. Everybody else has gone abroad to play their football, and for good reason. How does that dynamic work? I mean, how do you sort of rationalize that? We're going to grow them until they're 13, 14, 15 years old, and then we're going to send them off into the world to become good players.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. As soon as somebody is good over here, he's gone somewhere else, and that's probably just, you can look at the Icelandic league as kind of a talent pool, where young players take their first steps and get their experience against, older players who are unfortunately not good enough to go abroad. But, that's just, we like it the way it is. I mean, we enjoy watching our league, but the thing we enjoy more is seeing our good players go abroad and succeed. And that's what usually happens because, there are a lot of scouts in every single game watching these young players, and they pick them up immediately. As soon as they show signs that they could be true talent, they're gone. And that's everybody likes that. It's just the way it is.
If that point comes and you secure your qualification, 3 matches left, certain that you're going to get it done, what kind of party is going to happen on the island?
Oh wow! I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. There were 3,500 Icelanders in Amsterdam, which for an American probably doesn't sound so much, but that's 1% of our country.
Wow, yeah. And I said you guys traveled that well to Croatia last year, right? That disappointment.
Yeah, well, that was only about 1,000 people,
okay.
I think.
All right.
But going to this is probably the biggest away, support that Iceland has ever got, and it was sold out. There would have been more if we had more tickets. Amsterdam is an easy place to go to, short flight, and of course a great party city. So it was just a perfect occasion, and there were a lot of people there, and obviously a tremendous party. I've seen that from my friends who went, and probably my biggest regret in life is going to be not going to Amsterdam for this amazing night. But I can assure you that on Sunday people will flood to the streets if we clinch the Euro qualification. That's for sure.
Okay, what's going to happen here? What kind of music are we listening to? What kind of beverages are we consuming? What's happening at this party?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's anything organized, but all the bars are at the same place, and there's this square that I'm just going to guess that like tons of people are just going to go there and grab some drinks at the bar and take them outside and drink and sing. That's kind of the European way. Just, there doesn't have to be music. People are just singing some football songs and drinking beer. So that's something I could picture. But so far, I don't know if there's anything, specifically organized,
right,
but
yeah.
Icelanders usually find a way to drink.
Well,
so I don't worry about that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is what's the drink of choice and how's the beer? Because Trevor Hayward over here is a craft brew connoisseur. I imagine that Iceland's got a pretty good burgeoning beer industry.
Absolutely. For such a small country, I'm very proud of our beer, and we're witnessing so many new microbreweries popping up everywhere around the country that are just making this awesome beer, all from pale ale or white ale or IPA or whatever you want, you can get it, and some of them are winning some awards abroad. So yeah, we have some pretty good beer. I'm very happy with it.
We're booking a trip.
It beats Bud Light.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, duh. I mean, we're gonna book a trip. We're gonna come to Iceland and drink the beer. All right. Iceland in Euro 2016. France is a relatively easy place to get to, I imagine, for Icelanders. 3,500 people in Amsterdam last night. I imagine that the traveling support will be fairly significant, if not massive, relative to the population of the country. Iceland, again, such a small country that is doing big things, what exactly would the expectations be? And what, I mean, is it one of those things? I mean, we saw the Irish make it and go and just be happy to be there and sing their butts off and have a great time.
Yeah.
How is Iceland going to handle a European championship?
Well, I think we're such, I don't know if you should say, narcissists, but we're so full of ourselves that we probably, if we go there, we want to do big things. We're like, I don't know if you watch the UFC, but, Conor McGregor, he says, we're not here to take part, we're here to take over.
There you go.
And I probably think that would be the Icelandic mentality, because now we beat the Czechs, we beat the Turks, we beat the Dutch twice, and I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't at least try to challenge to get out of a group, so we'll have some, probably like Iceland always does, we'll have some really, really big expectations, and then we'll just see if we'll be disappointed or not. But I think there will be tens of thousands of people who'll go to France, and frankly, I don't know how the country is going to function in the meantime, because, there will probably, I don't know if the stores are going to be open or if the hospitals are going to be open, but we'll see what happens.
Yep. Well, that's obviously the problem when you have a small population. Everybody's interested in is going
exactly.
to.
We'll probably just import some foreign workers.
There you go. At this point, would you say that football is the biggest sport in Iceland? Obviously, when you have a national team driving interest, that helps. But it just because Iceland's doing well in football doesn't mean football is the overwhelming most popular sport.
No, that's true. But in Iceland's case, it is, and football has probably always been our biggest sport. Handball is popular as well, but absolutely, with people who have never watched football or soccer in their life are now starting to watch and starting to love it, just because. Even my grandmother watched the game yesterday, and that was probably the first soccer match she's ever seen. So, the team is getting the whole country aboard.
All right, look, it's all about targeting for France next year. Well on their way to doing so. A monumental victory over the Dutch last night. But, as with anything, we sort of always look into the future. Is there an identification happening? I mean, has the machine started, and is it running efficiently enough to ensure that there's going to be a pipeline of Icelandic talent coming through in the next, say, 10, 20 years to keep Iceland on this level as a team that can make noise in Europe?
Oh, that's the million-dollar question. And to be honest, I'm not sure yet. I feel that the generations that have been coming after our golden generations are not, quite as good. We will have to see, but I'm pretty skeptical about it, and I think we might be on a big high, and that we might go down again in a few years. But we'll have to see. There are some young players, and of course the infrastructure is still there. It's just about whether they'll be able to take the next step. But so far, I don't exactly see who's going to replace those players who are doing so well right now, but we'll see.
Does that mean that you personally and then the country as a whole is taking this situation more to heart and being more focused on enjoying the moment? Or, again, we live in an impatient age, Alexander.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, it's a mixture of both. I mean, some people believe that this is just the beginning of a great era, but some of us are also aware that this Euro might technically, possibly be the only big tournament we'll see in our lifetime. So it just depends on how people look at it. But yeah, many of us are aware that this might turn out to be a very unique moment in our sports history. So okay. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right. So Kazakhstan on Sunday. That may be the opportunity to secure the point that puts Iceland in the European Championships in 2016. Again, a potentially monumental achievement for a country nearly made the World Cup last year, a country that has decided to focus on teaching its players to be technical, and with everything that's working again against Iceland, Alexander, to see this happen is pretty stunning. It gives you faith again in football amidst a world that is very much being pulled down by corruption and greed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind words. And I think that's true. Everybody likes a Cinderella story and likes to see something new. And I think overall, if we reach the Euros, or I almost want to say when, I think we'll get a lot of support, for being the David against the huge amount of Goliaths who are obviously going to be taking part in this competition.
That's Alexander Einarsson. He writes on football at fotbolti.net. Sure how to even say that, Alexander. But Fotbolti. Okay, there you go. It's if you happen to read Icelandic, there's your source. Alexander Einarsson joining us. Talk about Iceland's monumental win yesterday and progressing to European Championships in 2016. Alexander, thank you very much. Congratulations. Get ready for the party.
Thank you too.
All right,
My pleasure.
Get ready for the party. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to you. We'll open up the phone lines on a Friday. U.S. men's national team, obviously what Iceland has done, European Championship qualifiers. It's Soccer Morning. WorldSoccerTalk.com. This Friday, the U.S. men's national team returns to action when it takes on Peru at RFK Stadium in an exhibition game. For a different experience, I'd like to invite you to mute the TV and listen to Matt Lichtensteiger on Rabble.tv as he shares his thoughts and analysis live during the international friendly. With Rabble, the concept is simple. All you have to do is tune into the broadcast on TV, press the mute button, and then head on over to Rabble.tv to listen to the broadcast on your desktop, through your iOS app, and now through your mobile browser. You can join in too by posting your questions or observations in the comments section. And if you have an iPhone, install the Rabble TV app and add a comment to the broadcast message board, then listen live via the app. Or why don't you create your own broadcast called one of your team's games? It's easy. Sign up for free today and try it out. Join Matt this Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern for USA against Peru on Rabble.tv, where it's your team and your call.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
We are back on Soccer Morning. It's a Friday show. Got some time to take your phone calls, talk to you about whatever is on your mind. Again, the United States hosting Peru tonight at RFK Stadium, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Fox Sports Uno is the station if you're watching, which you will be. You'll be watching. Even if you're out and about, find a way to watch. We also have Jurgen Klinsmann's comments in the news. This is burning up the American soccer sphere in a lot of ways. There's a lot to unpack. He made comments about the performance at the Gold Cup. He made comments about the state of MLS and the way it prepares players to play for the national team. He made lots of statements. He said lots of things. Whether or not they need context, I'm not so sure. Maybe they do. He should probably be careful about explaining himself. But he's created some controversy. Now, are we being distracted here? Is this Klinsmann once again doing that thing where his sleight of hand makes us talk about stuff that doesn't relate directly to his performance, his team's performance on the field? Or is it something else? And what is he right about? What is he wrong about? Cam, Charlotte, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jason, it's Cam. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind?
Listen, I just want to ask you two questions. The first is about USA as they go into this Peru match. How are you personally assessing this team's level of readiness for the Mexico game, and how will you evaluate Klinsmann based on the run-up to the Mexico game and kind of how you kind of manage your expectations going into Mexico?
I'm not sure that there's anything that can happen in the game against Peru or the game against Brazil that's going to make me feel overly confident about the team heading into the Mexico game. I just don't think that these are friendlies. The results don't matter. It's very difficult to assess a team when you're using 6 substitutions, when the level of intensity is not nearly what it's going to be when they take the field against Mexico. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot that can happen. But what I'm looking for, what I want to see, and what I think a lot of people want to see is just a little bit more on the front foot, a little bit more clarity on how they want to play, some ideas of how they're going to create chances going forward, because so much of what happened in the Gold Cup was based on being outshot by numbers that are insane when considered against previous results. So if Klinsmann is right, and we all need to be patient, and he's got a plan, then he needs to start showing at least some signs of that. And he needs to show as a coach in the moment that he can respond to what was a disappointing tournament and make enough changes or make the right changes to turn them into an effective team. So I want to see chances. I want to see shots. I want to see players combining in the final third, but I also want to see defensively some sort of notion that he's got an idea who his best center back pairing is, because more than anything else, what you're going to have to do against Mexico is prevent them from scoring before you can have a chance to win the game.
I totally agree. Do you feel like this team has an identity going into Mexico?
No, I don't know. I don't know how anybody could see it. The identity is put Michael Bradley in the middle of the field, put Clint Dempsey up top, hope they figure something out, and scramble at the back. That seems to be the identity.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too, Jason. You're right on. So I'll just move to my second question. When you look at the lawsuit the NASL has put against MLS, I just want to focus on USL and the progress that USL has made this season. And, obviously they're applying for D2 status. If you were comparing USL and NASL as far as progress, maturation, development, I mean, how do you evaluate both leagues?
Well, now the context for evaluation has changed because USL has willingly partnered with them. And by the way, there's no lawsuit, and what NASL's issue is with U.S. Soccer, not with MLS directly. We'll see.
Yes,
I know it's fine. I just want to make sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves here. While there's definitely a letter and it's been leaked and it's there's some publicity being brought up around this, nothing legal has started yet. So USL partnering with MLS changes how we evaluate them. There's the USL, or sorry, there's the MLS reserve teams, which are operating on one level. There's the independent USL teams, which are operating on a different level, like Harrisburg and Rochester and Charlotte. There's some other teams like that, and that is different in the way that NASL is approaching things. I actually do think that there's room between the USL and MLS for NASL to carve out their spot. They don't want to do that. They want to go big, and I guess the philosophy is that this is America. People aren't going to buy something that's sold as second rate. Okay, fine. I don't know that I'm a big fan of USL going after second division status. I don't know what the point of that is, to be honest with you. And this goes back.
I agree.
That goes back to the issue of the pyramid not being integrated. And if it doesn't matter, if we don't have promotion and relegation, then what does it matter what your level is? Again, NASL has an argument about first division status bringing more commercial opportunity. That's restraint of trade. That's their argument. But when it comes to USL, I don't know that I get it.
I agree with you on that, Jason. You're living in Charlotte, with Charlotte now having a team. For me, it's about fans latching on to a local product, a local team that they can support, and for the fans to galvanize those teams where those teams have a chance to develop real young talent that can matriculate up the pyramid and actually have an impact on their MLS team or NASL team or any team where they can get into the national team spotlight.
It comes down.
We're seeing some youth coming through some real development.
Yeah, and
wouldn't you say that's the point for you too, or no?
Yeah, no, I think that's the point. That should be the point. But then again, there's the independent teams who may have ownership groups who don't see themselves as just slotting in. Thanks for the call, Cam. As slotting in as developmental tools of MLS, and maybe they don't want to be that, and that's fair. I think the philosophical split here is when it comes to the idea of promotion and relegation. The philosophical split here is whether you believe we need clubs to establish themselves and create a fan base and get local interest first before we move into integrating the pyramid, or if you imagine that we have to have promotion and relegation in order to foster growth for these clubs, because otherwise they won't be able to get to a point where they could survive. That it's chicken and egg. That's the problem. Let's go to our friend Ray in Milwaukee. Ray, have I given you a shirt?
No.
I haven't given you a shirt number, right?
I'll take number 2 because I'm a twin.
Okay, good. I like that. All right, Ray, what's on your mind?
Yeah. First, I would just like to say that I think it's going to look a lot like Major League Baseball sooner or later. You're going to have that teams, even with the player spending with the first level of MLS. I really believe that that's what soccer is going to look like here. It's not going to be a traditional pyramid scheme or pyramid.
All right. What else?
Also, I don't understand why they have this international break right after the European transfer window deadline. You got a lot of. I know you got to get these games in and play these games, but I truly believe that either you move the transfer window up or you move these back.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. And first of all, the transfer window should close before any of the European seasons start. There's somebody in the Bundesliga, I can't remember, some executive said, let's stop with this madness. Let's end the window at August 1st. Let's get that done before these teams go into their season. Let's figure out who you have. Let's get rid of this business during the season. Oh, they played 3 games. Now they're going to go find a strike. Let's get these teams settled. Let's get this business out of the way, Ray.
But, Jason, now, from an American perspective, all of our transfer or trade deadlines are in the middle of the season. None of them even take place before the season.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know. It's just an odd situation. Ray, I got to move on. I got tons of people trying to get in today.
All right. Have a good day.
There goes Ray in Milwaukee. Good to hear from him. Landon, Salt Lake City. Hey, Landon.
Oh, hey, David. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well.
Hey, so I want to talk about Jurgen a bit. So, I mean, let's say, right now let's say we lose to Peru, Brazil, and Mexico. Is Jurgen still untouchable?
Yes. I mean, sadly, I think that's the only assessment that you can make based on the words, actions, and perception that's Galati and U.S. Soccer are giving us.
Yep. So that's exactly what I thought too. So I found it funny when we're hearing comments that Jurgen needs to do this, Jurgen needs to do this. Jurgen doesn't need to do a thing.
No, of course.
He can sit back and do whatever he wants to do.
That's where the frustration lies. Jurgen Klinsmann is untouchable. Jurgen Klinsmann has created, again, the magic, the genius of Jurgen Klinsmann is not necessarily, for me, on the soccer field in terms of managing a team. The genius is that he has created a situation where he can do no wrong. Either, oh, I'm building, we lose, I'm building, we lose, I'm building, or they win, and he gets all that glory. It's amazing. It's the best gig in the world. It's the best gig in the world.
No, it's great. When I get my next job, I'm going to call up Jurgen and figure out how do I work out a contract. It doesn't matter how I do my job. I'm not getting fired. Yeah. I'd love to hear how he works that out.
Hey, boss. I know I screwed up the Jones project. I'm really sorry about that. But I'm actually working on a long-term vision that's going to get us where we want to go as a company in 5 years. And if you just stick with me, I know I can get you. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. I'll try and pull that one off today at work. We'll see how that goes.
Appreciate the call, Landon. Good stuff, man.
All right, thanks,
Landon in Salt Lake City. My man Robert in L.A. I think he's number 11. What's up, Robert?
Hey, good morning, Fred Friday. I wanted to continue with the U.S. saying the first division standards, and kind of one of the arguments they say is like NL say lower divisions have smaller stadiums, and it will just make it look bad. But if you look across, that argument that doesn't work in European leagues or even closer at home, like in Mexico. Because I've been to many Mexico games in Liga MX, and there are smaller stadiums, and then no one ever says this is making us look bad. Also in Europe, like teams like Bournemouth, they have 10,000, and then there's a team in Spain that has 5,000 stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Look, I realize that these standards are extremely arbitrary, Robert. I think there should be some standard for first division. But again, I think we've already got this de facto situation that sort of sorts itself out. So it makes you wonder why on earth U.S. Soccer needs to do this in the first place. I mean, they're the ones sanctioning the leagues. And I guess that's why you have to have standards, because you need these leagues to know what they're working against. But without the pyramid working in conjunction with each other, without the leagues being connected in some way, it's really down to, I don't know. Again, it comes back to the antitrust element of it all. And whether or not U.S. Soccer believes that they have to protect MLS or MLS is damaged. And that's not a legal argument. That's not me saying this is how they get around the legal argument and they'll beat NASL on that front, because that's not legitimate. There's nothing there. But from a soccer standpoint, I think you could reason yourself into a belief that U.S. Soccer protecting MLS is ultimately what's best for the game in the long run, if only because of our history and because cannibalizing each other doesn't work out. But yeah, a standard with stadiums, maybe, I think there should be one. You can't have teams playing in 1,000-seat stadiums, but where that level is an open question.
Yeah, I can understand they're looking at the bigger picture, but just imagine if you wait for say sorry, Iceland, I know you're qualifying, but you have a small population. You can't come to the Euros. That's what I want to say. And one last thing real fast, Jason, before I hang up. What's wrong with the iTunes and uploading episodes?
That's not a question for me. That's a question for Trevor Hayward. If you want to ask him, I'm sure he'll happily answer your questions on Twitter. I don't know, Robert. I'm sorry about that. We're working on it. I just don't. I'm not saying that. We're working on it. That's what I'm going to say. All right.
Okay. I understand. Thanks for taking my call, Jason.
Appreciate it, Robert. There you go. If you're having problems with iTunes, we do apologize. I think we're working on solutions for that. Andrew in New York, what's up? Oh, I didn't click the button. Let's try that again. Andrew in New York, you're on the air.
Hey, I can hear you now.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, two quick things. First off, I didn't get a chance to call in when you were on your soapbox. Maybe it was last week about a certain gentleman in Blazers.
Yes.
But I just wanted to say, I've been listening to your show for, I don't know, maybe 6 months now. First time I heard it, the immediate thought I had was, this is finally soccer discussion from a guy that sounds like an American sports talk guy.
Okay.
I hope you don't take that the wrong way. But no, it was great.
I appreciate that, Andrew.
American flavored soccer.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Yes,
and that's what it felt like to me right away. And
there's no shame in that. Yeah, there's no shame in that. Go listen to those guys in Blazers, those men in Blazers too. That's fine. Go listen.
Yeah, no,
to them
they're
too,
great. I listen to them.
Just don't make a value whatever. Just realize that we need to be ourselves sometimes too. Okay, go ahead, man.
Absolutely, no. So that was that, and then oh man, New York City FC. They are. I think they're pretty much as good as done.
Yes.
I think Price's comments probably. I don't know if they've done them in. I think he had every right to say what he said, just in terms of them not having the mental capacity to go through. But I don't think the whole Pirlo thing was his idea. I think those were the higher ups giving him something that he had to work with because it's a big game. And I don't think if Price is allowed to mold that team the way he molds that team, he doesn't bring in both Lampard and Pirlo like that.
I agree with you, Andrew, and I got to move on, man. I appreciate the call. He doubled down on these comments, by the way, criticizing the players in his group. I'm a natural competitor and an emotional guy. I'm never going to apologize for that. Occasionally, I'm going to speak loudly about some things that I care about. I spoke loudly about the things I cared about, the thoughts I cared about, and I didn't apologize for those because that's how I truly feel. The players need to show up if they want to be here and be a part of this because I know the coaching staff does. I know the coaching staff. Those are actually comments from after the game, but he did not back down. Tyler, Virginia, you're on the air.
What's going on, Jason?
Go. What's going
on? I just wanted to call and talk a little bit about Jurgen with you. So I think that there was some truth, in what he said, as well as some elements of him, trying to cover his own tracks as he has been known to do. So I mean, for me, I think it's kind of indisputable that Michael Bradley or Clint Dempsey is being tested week in and week out in the same way that they were at a club like Tottenham or Roma. But on the flip side, I think that maybe it's also true that there are plenty of soccer fans, myself included, who are still really, really, really trying to understand the nuances of the game, on an X's and O's level. But I mean, that being said, none of us are stupid. We know what we see out there.
What's bothersome about this, Tyler? First of all, those MLS comments, I haven't actually put them on the air. Go find them. He basically says you're not being challenged for your spot in MLS. Which again, there's some truth to that. But this is a part of the sleight of hand he's doing. But if you're going to call out an entire country's soccer fan base as uneducated or undereducated, don't. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like I'm mad at you, but I'm not going to tell you why. You have to figure it out. Wait, what?
Yeah.
No, that's not how this is supposed to work. It's ridiculous. You can't possibly understand what I'm doing, so I'm not even going to bother telling you. First of all, he's completely disrespecting everybody involved, which is obvious, and he's refusing to own up and be accountable for what he's done as head coach. I mean, it's again, whether or not you believe Jurgen Klinsmann is pushing this team in the right direction, the words that come out of his mouth just fly in the face of anything that approaches a proper way of explaining himself or give. I mean, he wants to talk and talk and talk, but he never says anything of import.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's also true sometimes, and it's kind of like even when he does, like I said, maybe say something that has an element of truth in it. It's always camouflaged, in some larger comments that kind of cause everyone to not be able to just take what he's saying seriously. So it's like we can't really tease out this truth that's in there because he said so much other kind of craziness. Yeah,
this is the safety net he's built for himself. Thanks for the call, Tyler. He's built himself this safety net where if the results go bad, it's because we can't understand what he's doing. But if the results are good, then obviously it's bask in the glory and be the guy who's taking the United States to a next level. Say Italy, winning in Holland, winning in Germany. Gio, you're on the air. What's up? Got to do a rapid fire.
Hey, you're on all cylinders today. So I wanted to talk or ask you really quickly how you think this NASL thing is going to work out for San Antonio, who is obviously, still trying to get their MLS act together, but now we're hearing word that the city and the county are trying to buy Toyota Field from Hartman, and Spurs are involved somehow with this. Yeah, nobody's talking about buying the actual team. The word is that Spurs want a USL franchise before making the jump to MLS. It's
Weird.
a big mess over here.
I didn't know that. Maybe we'll have to dive into San Antonio a bit. I think we've got a couple friends down in that area. That's interesting. I don't know how it's going to play out for San Antonio. That doesn't sound good. Look, and that's the other thing about this. All of these clubs from NASL are along for the ride, whether they want to be or not. And you have to wonder if there are certain teams in this group. I've always said that, one of the indicators of where NASL fits into this whole thing right now is that clubs are actively working to get to MLS because it's a higher standard, and because for the owners, it represents a better business opportunity, a more solid business opportunity investment. So if NASL is going to get to the level where they can challenge MLS, then they've got a lot of work to do, and that's for a lot of people. That's the issue. I think they have a legal stand. Thanks for the call, G. I got to move. They have a legal standing here, but that's kind of immaterial when it comes to whether or not they're ready to challenge MLS. I don't know what's going to happen. Shane in Indiana, you got to be the last call. What's going on?
Well, last call. I'm just pissed like everybody else is about these Clemson comments that somehow we don't know enough about the game to understand why we got our butts handed to us by teams that really are inferior to us talent-wise and experience-wise. I know you're just the same thing a lot of other people have said, but, I think it's time for Clemson to hit the road and bring Winalda in as far as
Oh, no. Thanks for the call, Shane. Oh, my goodness gracious. That's the first time I have ever heard that. Shane just on this show on Soccer Morning on a Friday, Shane from Indiana just called for Eric Winalda to take over the U.S. national team. I am stunned. I mean, it'd be fun, but I'm stunned. I don't know. Eric Winalda, I think the man deserves a shot as a head coach somewhere. I'm not sure he's ready for the national team. Let's wrap up this edition of Soccer Morning. We've had an extra long edition because you guys wanted to talk to us, and we did 2 excellent guests. Thank you very much to Brian Sciaretta from American Soccer Now, Alexander Einarsson. Make sure you go find them on Twitter and their work on the internet. So that's it. We're done. It's a big week. We got USA Peru tonight. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be out at RFK Stadium. If you tweet at me, maybe I'll be able to shake your hand and share a beer with you. Let's get going. Make sure you go to backheel.com/store, by the way. Buy yourself some stuff, and we'll talk to you on Monday later.
Did my invitations disappear? What I put my